Let's now go across Dr. Gurcharan Das to discuss this a little more. He's, of course, an author and commentator and the former CEO of Procter & Gamble India. Thank you, Gurcharan, for joining us here. So if I want to first begin by asking you, today you've seen Tata Sons come out and also talk about how they felt the right thing for Cyrus Mistry to have done was to step down from all the group companies because that would have been the right thing to have done. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I personally think that this letter also was a very bad idea. I mean, a group like the Tatas, one does not expect it to engage in this sort of tu-tu meme in public. It diminishes Ratan Tata. The tone was too defensive, and we knew most everything that was in. Most people who are knowledgeable knew about what's in that letter. So I just think it was not necessary, and it's unfortunate.
But do you think that after having read this 9-page letter, about 3,500 words, the Ratan Tata camp has come out with a convincing argument on why it was necessary to sack Cyrus Mistry?
Well, you know, I personally always felt that the appointment of Cyrus Mistry was wrong. I mean, it carried risk. You know, after a global search, the Tatas settled on the son of the largest shareholder. He is personable, reasonably competent, but his experience was limited to managing a tier 2 construction company. Now suddenly you place him in a position to manage a complex, infuriatingly complex group which was in trouble. And so, I mean, the question you ask is, wasn't there one professional manager who was capable of stepping into Ratan's shoes to turn this business around? So I personally think that we have here a really almost a cautionary tale for Indian business, that you have to at some stage separate ownership and management. You have to separate the family's interest from the business interest. You have to change from family capitalism to managerial capitalism, as many countries have done. And you know, in India we have an old saying, Haveli ki umar 60 saal. And that basically means the life of a business house is 60 years. And so far, Tatas had defied this rule. But I think now it's catching up. And I think that really Ratan should now learn from this and bring the very best person possible in the world, and then go away. Stop looking over his shoulder, you know. Otherwise, nobody is going to come under these kind of circumstances.
But in this letter, when they write that Mr. Mistry conveniently forgets that he was appointed as the chairman of the Tata operating companies by virtue of and following his position as the chairman of Tata Sons, therefore, it was fair expectation of Tata Sons that Mr. Mistry would gracefully resign from the boards of other Tata companies on being replaced from the position of the chairman of Tata Sons. Where do you stand as far as this goes? They've gone ahead and already announced how there's going to be a new head at TCS. They're calling for an extraordinary general meeting for Indian hotels. Tata Chemical Board the meeting has just concluded, and Cyrus Mistry has refused to step down. Where do you stand as far as this goes?
Yeah. Well, I think this is wrong, what Cyrus is doing. I mean, there is a social contract here. and you don't sort of violate it. I think again the fault goes back to Ratan Tata in how he's handled Mistry. I mean, surely he should have found an amicable way to reach a settlement so that Cyrus Mistry would have stepped down. That's really the initial problem, because all this would not have occurred. Tata's reputation would not have been diminished, and we could have been saved all this pain. I mean, the only ones who are enjoying it are the media.
Cyrus Mistry should have stepped down from the group companies. But you do think that Cyrus Mistry, following that's what you're calling a social contract, should have stepped down from the group companies? You know, something else that they write in this letter.
Yes, of course, he should have stepped down.
Something else is very interesting in this letter.
I'm
with
losing
Indian
you.
hotels. So last week, is my voice reaching you now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
It's perils
I've
of live
lost you.
television, and we of course live in the age of call drops.
I've lost you.
Okay, now that you can hear me, I wanted to ask you specifically about Indian hotels. Last week, we saw the independent directors of Indian hotels come out and offer very strong support for Cyrus Mistry, saying they have full confidence in him. Today, Indian Hotels has informed the stock exchange that its shareholder, Tata Sons, is going to call an extraordinary general meeting to replace Cyrus Mistry. Then in this letter, they talk about Indian Hotels, where Tata Sons says the only representative of Tata Sons in the board of Indian Hotels was actually Mistry himself. Is Indian Hotels going to be a major point of war?
Well, I mean, if they go by the letter of the law, it might be. It might be. It's, I think those guys who have allied themselves with Cyrus Mistry apparently are getting ready for a war. It's again too bad, because Indian Hotels is a Tata group hotel, and it's very close to the history of the Tatas. And it would be a shame for that kind of thing to have happen. You know, I mean, it's I think that Ratan should still make maybe it's too late now, but he should still make a conciliatory effort. There should be an effort for someone to mediate. Because this is not, it's not good. It's not good. This is a wonderful institution, the Tatas. I mean, it's in trouble. So everything that both Cyrus and the Tatas have said is true. Only two companies are really generating all the profit, 90% of the profit of the group. So there are lots and lots of companies that are really in serious trouble out there, and they need to be. And my sense is that Cyrus, left to his own, would have
talks about
chopped them down, and perhaps the new guy may also. Hello.
Yeah, and you know, this letter actually talks about those troubles, whether it's to do with Tata Steels, for example, or Tata Docomo, or Tata Motors, and goes on to say that you should look at Cyrus Mistry's record by excluding TCS. Do you think that's fair or unfair? Like, should he be judged on how he has performed as the chairman of Tata Sons without the experience of without including TCS? Do you think that's fair?
You know, actually, I think they're not being fair to Cyrus, because he did a reasonable job. I mean, he certainly did not solve the problems, and those problems are still bleeding the group. But the reality is that the various companies have improved from large losses. Tata Power is now making a profit, and even Tata Steel, while the overseas business has been put on the block and actually some of it has been sold, the Indian operation is delivering $1 billion in annual profit. The troubled Indian part of the Tata Motors, even here, they've got finally a product, the Tiago, with the hatchback, which could be counted on to gain market share. And of course, the Jaguar Land Rover is still continuing to make good profits. I think only the telecom business has soiled the Tata reputation. When Mr. Mistry opted for the legal route rather than the moral route in the dispute with Docomo over the 1.17 billion buyback. That would be the one thing, I think, which certainly I also felt, that now Dharma had been wounded, that this was not the Tata way. And so I think Cyrus did a workmanlike job. I mean, it wasn't a bad performance, but certainly I think it needed a much stronger individual. You see, you can see it, the contrast with Infosys, where also we've seen a succession, and a new man has come in, and that man is not only consolidating, but he's showing the future for the company. He's lifting the company. Now, we have not seen any of that vision from Cyrus. So Cyrus is a workman-like person who will sort of keep things theek hai, kind of way, keep incremental. But in the case of Tatas, you need a very strong change now,
In fact, the letter talks about that and goes on to say that, it's unfortunate that he was appointed as the chairman based on certain views and submissions that Cyrus Mistry made during the selection time on the vision of the Tatas. But unfortunately, after 4 years, they haven't seen any of that fructify. So, and you also sound a little conflicted, saying that Cyrus Mistry was never right for the job.
Yeah, I don't think he was right for the job. I don't think he really had a vision. He did some workman-like things, but it needed a kind of superhero out there, and certainly he was left with a huge legacy of problems by Ratan Tata. So I would have, and besides, I have an ideological preference here that Indian business has to learn finally to separate the ownership from management. They have to separate the family from the business. It's very, very important for the future. If some of our companies are going to survive in the future, you can't depend on friends and on nephews and on sons of shareholders. That's not the way that, this is an interesting thing that the United States particularly made this transition in the 1920s, about 100 years ago. And Europeans have still, Germany has made that transition, Japan has made that transition. But Italy and France have still not made that transition. Therefore the companies you don't have large private managerial companies, where you may have public sector companies in those countries, but not large private sector companies. So I think it's in India's interest here, and that's the big sort of lesson for the Indian business houses and those who may be watching this show.
We have TCS, which has decided to replace Cyrus Mistry. Tata Chemicals and Indian Hotels, he's going to continue as the chairman. It's going to be one big mess if you're going to see Cyrus Mistry as heading some group companies and not heading the other group companies.
Well, I mean, it's war from his side. And so I think the Tatas will have, after all, I don't know how much the individual shareholding they have in each of these entities, Indian Hotels and Tata Chemicals, but it could be a shareholder fight for the shares that Mistry commands versus the shares. The irony, of course, is that Tata Mistry is representing the Tata's stake in these companies. So it's you're right. I mean, it's a mess. It's an absolute mess that we could do without.
Gurcharan Das, coming on that, you felt that Cyrus Mistry should have stepped down, and your views?
Well, I mean, from a legal point of view, he's correct that each individual entity, so it's not 1980s or 2016, each legal entity is a separate entity. But the fact is, there is also a moral argument that these are Tata entities, and so Tata Steel could, I suppose, go on its own, or Tata Chemicals or Indian Hotels could go on its own, and certainly the shareholders can decide to do that. However, I still think here that there is some, to me, the sort of dharma of the situation would require, would say that there is, the Tata's name has contributed over the years to what the companies are, and so ultimately this is not a legal position, because the shareholders ultimately in this EGMs, etc., so which is an arithmetic thing, that they are going to be able to sort it out. But my own belief is,
well, all we can leave it at is that right now it's a massive war that is out there right now between the Ratan Tata camp and Cyrus Mistry. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, so I apologize for interrupting you. There's perils of live television, but Gurcharan Das, Sandeep Parekh, thank you so much for taking the time out and joining us here on ET Now.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow, and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.